Good morning, everyone. My name is John Mackenzie. I've been around in the analytical instruments business for 30 odd years. I've had various jobs and tasks during that time. Let me just go back to my webinar control page. No, that's not what I wanted it to do. My goodness, it's all going wrong. It's all going wrong. Bear with me just a moment. I think I'm going to have to stop sharing just a moment. Okay. I think we have a few more sign-ins. Right. Last chance to join. So my name is John Mackenzie. I've been around the industry for about 35 years. Today we're going to talk about Compass. We'll start with some of the basic setup in Configuration Manager, talk a little bit about groups and projects and users and all kinds of other things that make Compass such a versatile and quite well respected product. All of these things are needed so that you can track who's using it, when they're using it, how they're using it, and to ensure that you have compliance to 21 CFR 11. We will also look at building a method, look at some of the instrument sections, some of the run sections, post-run, that kind of thing. We'll build some sequences, looking at doing just a single sample, and then looking at doing multiple samples. We'll then have a little look at doing some reports, both single reports on a per sample basis and summary reports where you're maybe reporting the whole sequence of results in one page. We'll look at building a calibration curve and using reprocessing lists to review and recalculate the data that you may have collected. So we'll get started with some of these things, and let's see how we do. So Compass is made up of two main sections. You have the main CDS, which is this section here, and you have what's called Configuration Manager. Now, Configuration Manager shouldn't be needed for routine operation of the system. You definitely don't need to. Is my screen sharing? No. My screen sharing is not working. Share. Better. Sorry. I showed a little presentation. My screen sharing wasn't working. I can only apologize for that. The content of the little PowerPoint I gave is fairly minimal. It is basically just lists. If we look at Configuration Manager, we can see some of the sections within Configuration Manager. So we talked a little bit about groups. Groups you can think about in terms of different laboratories within an organization. So Compass is registered to an organization, and then there are labs or different groups within that organization. You can see that we have a few set up. Within each laboratory or within each group, you would then have projects that are running, and the projects will contain both users and instruments that are used as part of that project. If we have a look at the users, we can have a long list of users. Unlike other systems, we do not license the number of users that we have on the system. The number of users can be basically unlimited. That gives you some logistical problems, because if you're using it in a client server environment, all of those users have to have a Windows account as well, and that would involve CALs and that kind of thing. Each of these users can have a user profile. The user profile allows you to control everything that the user can do and see. Now, you can see from the list here, there is a long list of things that users can see and change, and you can control every aspect of that. And if you block a user from having a particular functionality within Compass, what that will mean is the buttons or the controls for that just don't show up in Compass when that user is logged in. So it is very secure, and there is quite a lot of certainty that if you the permissions and privileges that you give to users are quite tightly controlled. We also have what's called administrator users, and the administrator users similarly have a profile, and there are a set of things that they are allowed to do, and it is exclusive to that group. Now, that would be the lab manager or the quality manager or whoever, or the team leader, whoever is controlling particular groups. Now, even within that, you can have an ultimate super manager, if you like, who can control and see everything. And then you can divide down privileges to different project managers or different group managers so that they can control particular aspects of their groups and their projects without actually getting involved in other people's. And part of this also allows who can do electronic signing, so normal users wouldn't be allowed to sign documents, and here you can control who can sign and who can't sign. If we move a little further down the list, we have what's called the systems. Now, systems is not something that users would routinely be doing anything with. Managing users and managing user profiles, yes, the manager probably is doing that maybe on a weekly or a monthly basis, depending on what the staff turnover looks like and what the types of samples and sample changes that maybe come through. But systems, maybe not so much, because the systems tends to be governed by what hardware they have available. And most laboratories are not buying new hardware every week or every month. Mostly it is maybe a quarterly or an annual activity where they are adding or removing some instrumentation. Again, within any given instrument, you can control and see everything that is possible. You can completely configure the instrument. You can control how it looks on the screen when you get into the main CDS. You can see what the configuration is. You don't really have much control in what shows up in the screen, because what shows up in the screen is determined by the actual hardware rather than any setting that you might make. But Compass still needs to be aware of the configuration and how it's going to interact with it. If we move a little bit further down, we also have what are called systems. Basically, these are PCs. So they are client PCs that would allow you to do some things from a client onto the main server, and therefore influence a system, or maybe collect data, or set up sequences, or whatever your privileges allow. My particular system today is a standalone system, so I only have one station. Remembering all of these different settings, and there are quite a lot, and I understand that we have sort of gone through them quite quickly. This is basically just a 1 hour taster of some of the things that Compass can do. Remembering all of these things could be quite tricky. So we have this little feature down here called associations. And in the association screen, you can see all of the groups, all of the projects, and when you click on any one where these intersect, you can see who is active in that project, what equipment they have available, and where their data goes. It's quite a nice visual tool so that you can keep track of everything that is going on with all of the users. Now, for my system here, maybe not so important. We don't have that many users. We don't have that many instruments. When you start to get up to 30, 40, 50, 100 users with similarly 100 instruments or 200 instruments, using the data that you find in here to map and track what everybody is doing is certainly a very useful feature. So if we move on from this, at the bottom of the screen, we have some basically housekeeping where we can see what connections have been made on the system. So I only have one connection. We also have the ability to limit access to the Compass data file. That's controllable within here. And the final two are about creating communication connections to some other systems. Something I don't think we need to spend any time on today. Let me see if I can get the participants that are in the list, the late arrivals. We'll see if we can get them in just quickly while I take a little bit of breath before we move on to the next section.